No, I think especially at the stage you're in, and probably for a while, even your Series A, B, it all comes down to only three things: team, product market fit, market opportunity. That's it. And so at the stage you're in, it really is probably the heaviest weight is the team. And so when it comes to the team, it's more about why are you working in this idea, right? And what unique insight do you have? Your clarity of thought on how you plan to, see this as a big opportunity, and how good are you at convincing that? Like that's, and if an investor gives you capital, do you know what to do with it, right? So that's pretty much it. It actually does not matter, to be honest. I think pretty much if you're consumer, B2B, enterprise, it doesn't. Where probably industry or domain experience helps a little bit is really healthcare. And bio. I think in fintech there is slight bias maybe, because building a fintech product requires some domain knowledge or at least interest and curiosity, because there's a lot of regulatory and compliance, but largely no. So which is why I said your clarity of thought during your pitch to investors is what matters. How much you have thought about it and how well are you able to articulate all the nitty-gritty details of your business, is what matters. And more importantly than not, you should always assume you are teaching the investor about this space and the company. Don't assume they know it. And so they measure by how well you're teaching them. So that's really the measure. But I plan to work on this idea. I've been thinking about it for the last 12 months. And I plan to, hire someone and launch a product in the next 12 months. That's clearly moving slow. Right? So it's how they're measuring whether you move fast is how scrappy you are. Have you launched your MVP? How many iterations are you doing? How are things moving in the pace? And at this point, it should move really fast on a week by week basis. Would you agree?
Yes. If you're working on something people want, there's a lot of latent demand. And so you should be able to find users easily. In fact, if you don't know your first, I think we say this a lot, but if you don't know your first 10 users, 10 to 50 users, it's potentially there's no founder market fit there. Do you discount remote teams or how do you evaluate local versus remote, if anything?
Well, I think this really varies depending on who you ask. But I think one thing is clear, which is remote is increasingly taking off. And so it would be a remiss for anyone to say, oh, we only focus on local and no longer remote, right? I think tools like Slack, Zoom have really made it incredible for more remote teams to function. I mean, look at GitLab, one of YC's companies, completely remote. Zapier, another amazing company, completely remote. So we don't make any differences, but it really comes down to the investors' selection. I think even from an investor standpoint, there's no ding on whether it's remote or local. It's more where they're spending their time. But again, here I would emphasize, don't do things to satisfy investor. Build the company you want. If you build a great company with lots of users, from wherever the investors are, they'll come.
How does a solo founder factor into this? What is, the team is one person, so how do you evaluate that one person?
More often than not, it's the CEO that's talking to the investor anyway. We don't recommend that all founders are attending all investor meetings because obviously it's a lot of time, that goes on doing investor meetings versus you have real work to do. So it really comes down to the CEO's clarity of thought, and how well they are able to impress upon investor. By the way, this is not just to impress investors. The reason why this clarity of thought, I keep bringing this up, if you don't have that, how are you going to hire your first 10 people? If you can't convince your first 10 people that you're building something big and they should join you in your mission, then it's really hard to convince investors, right? And that's why investors are looking for that storytelling ability. So solo founder doesn't matter. It's the CEO's job. The CEO really needs to be good at it, and they should learn to be good at it.
Cool. Next one's about international founders. So you've personally invested tons of money in international startups. How did those founders convince you to put that money into their company when you're not from there, Colombia, UK, all these other places?
And it also comes, I think the international ones we did were probably a little later stage too. So given we didn't have presence in the region and we didn't know what was really market demand, we waited for some more progress, right? So you see that in metrics, you see that in their thinking, you see that in a more fleshed out process. But even there, if it's hard to hire in San Francisco, think about how hard it is to hire there. There are no execs available with scale experience. So those CEOs actually have to work 10 times harder to have that clarity of thought and to convince someone from the US to move there. Having, obviously observed a lot of YC founders, even the ones at scale, it's such a hard journey, and there are so many things that are going to go wrong, that having another co-founder generally I've seen has helped a lot more, because there's someone who can give a lot more context than everyone depending on the CEO. But if you don't have that, that's fine. But then by the B, we're looking for some senior execs, at least one or two, who are incredible that you can lean on for some portion of your business. Because if it's still all you, the main challenge after the BVC is the CEO is not scaling. And so if you're a solo founder, it just becomes harder if you don't scale.
What are the indicators that I should see before I take on investment or even go start fundraise?
Most companies tend to fundraise. So, but the short answer is I actually always refer to PG's post here because I love that post, which is try to be default alive and try to raise as much money as possible, as little money as possible, so you remain focused. I think it is super important and it's lost, on many people. But if you look at, the really even successful companies, everyone has done mistakes, but they'll all say the most painful time of their company's life, even in later rounds, was when they, you may have more money in the bank and you end up hiring more and then you actually delivered a lot less. So it's not that your problems magically go away. Your problems become tenfold because you have people problems, a lot more people problems. So at this stage especially, I'd say raise as little money as possible and focus. Now, there is a question as to whether should you raise or not, right? Very few companies don't raise, but Zapier, for example, never raised after YC Demo Day. And I think because the business is so good, it's growing really well, they are EBITDA positive, they have very healthy margins. And, often Wade would tell me this, like, I don't know what to do with my money in the bank. Why will I raise more? It's a great reason not to raise, right? But if you are not in that luxurious situation, then, there is something to be said about I need capital to grow. Not necessarily for paid marketing. Please don't take this as paid marketing. This is another common mistake. But more like I need to hire more engineers. I need to hire ahead of time to build the things that I need because I know I have a business model at the end of it. So therefore, the way to think of fundraisers, if you think you have a clear path to the next milestone and you may need maybe $200, $500 or $1 million, then just raise that minimum amount, but come up with that plan very clearly. What is the money you need to hit that next milestone, and just raise that money, because guess what? Your dilution matters.
Why 9 out of 10 startups keep failing after wasting time, efforts, and money? It is always the same story. Entrepreneurs fall in love with their ideas, get feedback from their friends, make the same mistakes as other founders did before them, and end up failing. We came to understand that the most precious feedbacks come from wise entrepreneurs, people that have done the startup journey before you, whether they failed or succeeded. Whizpreneur is an online platform where people with ideas get honest feedback from wise entrepreneurs before investing too much time, effort, and money. Every day, many people pitch their ideas only in 140 characters on Whizpreneur.com and get valuable, honest feedback that helps them save time, money, and effort. The best pitch of the month, voted by the community, gets a prize worth $10,000 for his startup. Have you succeeded or failed with a startup before? You can also make money with your wisdom on Whizpreneur.com. Contact us at info@Whizpreneur.com. Together, we can all improve the success rate of startups if we share our wisdom with new entrepreneurs on Whizpreneur.com. Join the community today at Whizpreneur.com. Whizpreneur.com. Honest feedback from wise entrepreneurs.